We have the full lineup for the 2027 World Cup. It's in place. We have all 24 teams qualified, and the last of them to qualify was Samoa, a team who's made knockouts in the past, a team who's caused upsets, who almost beat the Springboks back in 2011, has had almost beat England in the last World Cup, has had a number of really great World Cup days. They have snuck in at the last possible minute.
The whole of Samoa as well, not just Western Samoa.
Yeah.
No, I'm chuffed for them. And we will get on to their game against Belgium, the qualifier, and how great they were. But first and foremost, to give Samoa their moment. It would have almost felt wrong to not have them around.
It wouldn't have felt right, would it, to have a World Cup without Samoa?
A team that we grew up idolising.
Yes.
And one of my favourite memories of falling in love with international rugby was just before the 2011 World Cup, the first one we ever watched live as rugby fans.
Big dedicated, we know who the Tier 2 nations are fans.
Or just generally, was watching their pre-World Cup warm-up with Australia, waking up in the middle of the night.
It was like 4:30 a.m. or something.
Yeah, thinking like, this Samoan team might do it, you know? And
we're looking at the team beforehand and going, like, that's a stronger Samoa team.
Yeah, all the pundits saying, well, we're going to blow them over, but it should be a fun game. And then Samoa going out and winning that, and they had an incredible team there. And since then, like, Samoa as a rugby nation has just been, nothing short of just like entertaining and inspiring to watch most of the time. And admittedly, their team has aged since then. They've not brought through as many young players in the last sort of 5 or 6 years, but they still have a great squad together, and hence why they've gone down from being like an automatic qualifier to having to take the last spot in the repechage.
Yeah. There's been, over the last few years, an awful lot of union issues. We've covered those a few times over the last 2 World Cups and the lead-up, and a lot of those persist and continue in terms of corruption involving some of our government right up to the rugby union, and then also the issue that they have not been developing players on island, right? So the majority of their players now are mostly Kiwis, some Australians, who have Samoan heritage, and that's where a lot of their players are coming from, because they're not doing enough. And there is still plenty of incredible athletes coming through from the nation itself, but not enough being done to develop those players on island. And you hope Moana Pacific would do more for that, but there's still like a bit of an issue going on there. And hopefully we see some kind of reform in them. Now, both having the wake-up call of almost not qualifying for this World Cup, but now getting in leads that changing, because Samoa is one of the proudest and one of the most exciting nations in this game.
Yeah.
And you can't be a fan of international rugby and not be a fan of Samoa.
Yeah.
Like, it's such a big part of it.
100%.
Is they have such a clear identity and brand, and we saw them even playing with that over this tournament. And even when we've had poor Samoa teams in the past, right, they still play with that like nailed in, we are going to kill you, bone crunching, like we will break you open, we have men the size of Japan, and we will smash you with them, kind of whole deal.
Yeah, 100%. That was exactly how they won this game against Belgium. So if you think of all of the things that were great about Samoa in this game, it was sheer physicality and pressure that they put on Belgium throughout this game. And the scrum was kind of the number one there. All game, they were just walking through Belgium. I really felt for Jean-Baptiste de Klerk, the tight head for Belgium, who had to play the full 80 minutes. He is my new favourite rugby player, I've decided. When you say they have men the size of Japan, like Jean-Baptiste de Klerk was the biggest man on the pitch somehow. But yeah, he was absolutely brilliant to watch.
Yeah, Impasse had brief spells with both Stade and Bayonne. It's been floating on the Pro Day as a very solid scrummager for a few years, but there's only so much you can do, right? When Michael Alato on the other side is getting massively under every tight head loose head they roll on.
Yeah.
And so
TC Lamsateli starting, of course, and had a brilliant
loose head.
Yeah.
And this was it. The scrum was such a big theme, but Samoa was so physical throughout the game. And you felt the entire way, I don't know how Belgium can hold on with this. And there are a few times over both halves, right? There were moments about 20, 30 minutes in where you thought this is the moment where Samoa break them and they go ahead and Belgium never catch back up. And the Belgian defence was incredible. Yeah. And they managed to, through sheer heart and work rate, keep up with the Samoa team, who were, and I don't mean any insult to the Belgian side, but more powerful, physical, and professional than them.
Right? More experienced.
Yes. But they had 2 players who played to top 14 or first flight standard in the Belgian team, right? And obviously have a bunch of, Pro Day and
National level,
and European Super Cup players, and players who played to good kind of professional standard. But you had Samoan players who have won European Cups in there. Right, and you had, Scott Searle played in a World Cup final.
Yeah,
you've got players
rolling
who
off the bench.
Yeah,
is a power move.
That team should have won comfortably. But through sheer fight and determination and heart, that Belgian team stayed in it and managed to keep in touch the entire way. And eventually, right, they kind of didn't look like scoring a try pretty much the entire game. They had one breakaway opportunity, maybe two. And yet then, when the moment comes, Matthias Remu, their like real star player who's on Toulouse's books, is kind of fifth or sixth choice fullback at Toulouse.
Yeah.
But is like the absolute
Fifth or
star
sixth
there.
choice fullback at Toulouse is like
The
star
best club
player
in the world.
of any other
Exactly,
team.
exactly. And he is such a talent.
He's so good.
Every chance he's had with Belgium and then the odd games he's had at Toulouse.
Yeah.
And obviously playing for the Espoirs as well, which we can't see as much over here. But he has like a great step on him. He's incredibly alert. You've got like a real ability to scan and look at the game. He generally plays as a fullback, but they put him in at 10 here, Belgium. And I think that's quite a wise decision. Like he really, I think, got the most out of it. Had his twin brother playing at 13, Florian as well.
That's what I really like. This axis between the two of them is absolutely brilliant. And what I really liked is that they occasionally swap them round. Because they know that Matthias Remu is the man to like try and get the ball into the hands of. And sometimes that means first receiver. You think of like Chile with Rodrigo Fernandez.
Yeah.
Rodrigo Fernandez is one of the fastest players in that back line. And sometimes a little bit wasted as the fly half.
Yeah.
If he was playing for a kind of higher ranked team in the world rankings, they probably would use him slightly more as a fullback. Yeah. But you want him as a fly half because you want his hands on the ball. You want him to be controlling the game. Whereas here with Matthias Remu, that sometimes they would have like, here, this is a brilliant example. They put Florian into first receiver to put the kick over the top because they know if they get the lucky bounce, Matthias is the one to run onto the ball who can get some broken field here. Or here, instead, they again put Florian in at 10 and Matthias into the fullback channel because they know they've got loads of space and they've got a man with a pin-sharp right foot sidestep on him and he doesn't quite break for on this occasion. But a lot of times, if he had 5 metres more space, maybe he's making a clean break and linking up with somebody to score a try.
And so it's literally, right, like there's a couple of gain line carries, there's a little bit of momentum, and then Matthias Remu gets a little bit of a defender drifting off him.
Yeah.
And they have gone quite lateral all game, Belgium, and suddenly he flattens up, goes straight to the line, pulls that little step and goes through it, and he almost scores himself. It's a really great break. He's dragged down just short, but it's a moment of inspiration out of nowhere of just having someone of that talent, right? And that was pin up at any moment. And every moment of defence led them to being able to execute on that one chance they had and then take it. And then Dacuba goes over a moment later as the captain, who was brilliant, who was maybe the best player on the pitch, like certainly from a starting point of view for me, like was right up there. I think, Michael Alto in that Samoan front row obviously takes big credit. But outside of that, for Dacuba, 6 was brilliant.
So Jean-Maurice Decubert, their blindside flanker, outstanding. He put in 78 minutes of a shift and ran himself into the ground.
Yeah.
And it was that point when, it was obviously Belgium drew the game, and we'll talk more about that, what led up to this in a moment. But they drew the game, obviously, at this point, because it's done in ranking tables rather than it being a knockout match.
Yeah.
So 2 points for a draw on the table was enough to send Samoa through to the World Cup. So Belgium knew they had to win it. And seeing their best player in Decubert going off, you kind of looked at it and went, no, what's gone on there? Why have they done that? But actually,
when you barely walk.
What can you do? Same with Julien Berger playing scrum half for them. 35 years old.
Like 2 turnovers?
Yeah,
over the
2
game?
turnovers, and again, so lively.
Yeah.
In terms of like just sniping around the breakdowns, keeping everybody honest, and just upping the tempo. Also, just kicking games really, really solid.
Yeah.
I just really like him. A great leader as well.
And Belgium's all-time top try scorer as well.
Yeah.
With only 15 tries.
Yeah.
But has been a real servant for them and a really reliable player for a long time, and has a game management to him as well as the kind of sniping and the quicker stuff that we know him for.
He's great fun. He's kind of like tier 2 rugby's answer to like a Corbus Rydak type player.
I like that.
Where he sneaks through a lot, but also he does settle things down and he leads from the front. And then when he went off again, you looked at it and you were like, oh no, they can't afford to lose him. But actually, like Montoisy, who was started on the wing and moved into scrum half, had a brilliant game as well. Yeah. Aside from his no arms tackle, which is just, again, if you're leading entirely with your shoulder, you can expect to potentially go to the bin. But no, he was absolutely brilliant. So just really impressed with Belgium and the way they stood up.
So this was pretty much inarguably the biggest and best result in the history of Belgian rugby. And it's so gutting that players can't enjoy it and celebrate it because they were so close to something even greater. Their coach, Laurent Dossan, was asked before the game, if you win, will this be the biggest day in the history of Belgian rugby? And he said, no, it already is. We are in a position where we can qualify for the World Cup, where we're playing Samoa. That is huge for us. if you look at the history of Belgian rugby, right, like the biggest game they ever played, they played Argentina once, you know, like before the 2007 World Cup, and that was huge for them. There's odd games like that where they got to play teams that are regular World Cup nations and aren't the likes of Georgia, Romania, Russia, etc. Right? If you were to look at their best results in history, they beat Russia a few months after they came back from the 2019 World Cup, which is usual to beat a World Cup nation, current World Cup nation. But probably that was overtaken by them beating Namibia a few weeks ago, or just over a week ago.
I guess beating Portugal not long after the 2023 World Cup was huge as well. But you're right, it is beating whoever scraped through into the World Cup. Is usual. The mighty Manu Samoa. Who have had these huge results of beating the Wallabies and everyone.
This was a decent strength Samoa
beating
team.
Wales and
you know you're missing UJ Suteni and a handful of the other players and
Theo McFarland was playing.
But this was a good Samoa team. Like Michael Alatoa we've mentioned, like
Jacob
Umanga at fullback.
Got an England cap.
Like you just got Sia on the bench. Like the likes of Miracle Faialangi, who was really good. I thought was also in contention, kind of the two like flankers opposite each other of like real player of the match contenders. Maybe possibly could have got it for me. But like it was a strong Samoa team. And they drew with them. Like 13 all. That's huge. That's like an all-time great result. It's just unfortunate that it landed in the way it did, because this has been like the greatest month for Belgian rugby ever, probably. Like,
I really want them to qualify in 4 years' time. And it's such a shame that this new Nations League kind of eliminates that because they've been frozen out.
So Dusa was asked about how he's feeling about this ahead of this game. And he said, well, the thing is, when I was offered my contract, when I signed on, my goal was not to qualify for 2027. It was to lay foundation to qualify in 2031. And that was always their eye. A bit like Chile in 2023, their goal was to qualify for 2027, and they got there a bit early.
Ahead of schedule,
Belgium were very close to that. They could not have been
They were
closer.
1 point away.
They were 1 point. They were, they had a couple of chances in the 22, but if they'd taken a drop goal, they would be through. If they'd taken a penalty, they'd one kickable penalty went for the corner, they'd be through if they nailed those.
If they held out in that scrum on halfway.
If they conceded in the corner, right, rather than between the posts, and someone missed the conversion, they'd be in the World Cup right now.
Something as simple as that.
Like this game was so close. The margins were so tight. They are so far ahead of schedule. And there are a bunch of older heads in their team, but there's also an awful lot of young players. The Ramu brothers are, 22? They're pretty young. You've got a load of players you can build this team around, and also plenty of players, the likes of Dakuba is 29. A lot of those players will still be around in a few years' time.
As well, they had Jens Torth out injured, no Hugo de Franck. They weren't entirely frustrated, and neither was Samoa, of course. But again, these fine margins could have got them into a World Cup. And as you say, they couldn't have done any more, and they can be really proud of that. And I really hope to one day see Belgium compete at a Rugby World Cup.
And this is the thing coming back to the Nations League, right? It's we won't get the chance to see this team play against any bigger nations. And them missing out on the World Cup means they won't even get to play the likes of Samoa again outside of World Cup qualifying. That is the only chance they'll get. We still don't know how qualifying will work, whether it'll be like the women's side, where it will come entirely through the kind of equivalent Nations League, which would be really disappointing because you'd mean you're missing out on these games. And you're missing out on these teams.
It's for the old boys club, isn't it?
But Belgium getting to this point comes largely from the likes of Canada going and playing autumn internationals there, and Namibia going and playing autumn internationals there, right? And that helps raise the level because they get used to playing these games, and eventually they can put in one of the most compelling and spirited, incredible underdog performances we've seen all year against Samoa because they've had exposure to the next level up, right? And that then means, and again, Dusan was very upfront about this. He said Samoa are a level above us, right? And we shouldn't be competing with them, and yet they did, right? And the other thing, the other side of this is how knackered Theo McFarland was after the game. His post-match interview, he could barely breathe.
Samoa put everything
he was gasping
into that
for breath. It was one of the most exhausted, God, I'm shattered post-match interviews I've seen in a long time. So they gave absolutely everything, Belgium. They forced Samoa to have to give everything, and I think there was a world in which when Samoa made that break early on, in which you feel maybe they run away with this.
That's it. There were so many chances where they got into the Belgian 22, and you thought this will be the chance.
This will be it.
Belgium have done everything. Okay, if they concede here, fair enough, they've done well. And they just refused to. However, there were a couple of moments, and I guess a couple of players that swung the game. Firstly, I just think Jacob and Mang are really solid at the back.
Yeah.
I like the access to them putting an extra kicker at the back because they really need that. When other teams put pressure on them, he can relieve that quite a lot. And also, like he was a pretty decent kind of second distributor with Rodney Iona playing 10. I thought he had a really solid game, Iona. And as you say, when you bring the likes of a Suteni back into the fold, that's going to make that quite exciting. But the moment that it all swung on was, in fact, the substitution to bring on Abraham Papali'i. He was utterly outstanding.
He was.
Again, a player of the match contender, having only played half an hour of the game.
And I think the thing about him is that is a classic brilliant impact sub that I think if you started him, you wouldn't have got that performance out of him.
No, I agree.
He came on, he was fired up, he was angry. He's a guy in past who said that he doesn't mind getting red cards. You know, like he's like, but bringing on a guy with that kind of ferocity and someone who plays, you know, does play top 14, does get involved week in, week out.
Experience in rugby league as well.
Yeah,
so
and so like, and obviously has a brother who plays in the NRL, so is used to violence and pressure. And, you know, Christmas dinners must be hectic.
Yeah.
And he's able to come on and bring that sort of fury and bring that dynamism and that, particularly that power and that aggression, and was putting in hits, was carrying the ball incredibly hard, scores the try that eventually doesn't, you know, puts them ahead and leads to the situation where Belgium can only hope to draw the game and they can no longer win it.
Yeah.
Was massive. Turned the game.
The importance of that try was like, it was so much more than kind of a 7-pointer, wasn't it? Because just before that, they'd had obviously a yellow card and a warning for like fighting and back chat and all that sort of stuff. Jonathan Tamatani got himself in a little bit of trouble for getting into a fight really
like
unnecessarily. And then he got subbed for Connor Tupai, who was brilliant off the bench as well, who really controlled things and calmed things down. Because Belgium were clearly getting in Samoa's heads, because I think they didn't expect them to be this good and have this much fight, I suppose. But Tupai brought this sense of calm to go along with the violence that Papali'i was bringing.
The thing about Jonathan Tamatani, and I like him, I enjoy watching him, he's an incredibly good rugby player, but as a scrum half, he has absolutely no control of the game.
No.
He's just doing shit.
No.
He's like, you know what I fancy doing now? A box kick?
Yeah.
Like, rather than, if we do this is the decision that will make us most likely to advance up the field. He's just like, nah, I fancy throwing it 30 metres.
Can show off it.
Yeah. He's just doing shit. And he's just like, do you know what? I fancy doing that.
He is an entertainer first and an international rugby player second.
Connor Tupai as a scrum half who came on and played like a scrum half rather than a very talented rugby player. Like in the Mike Phillips mould, right? Where you're like, you're a great rugby player. I'm not sure you're a great scrum half, but you're a great rugby player.
Yeah.
And so you justify your selection in that 9 jersey.
So Samoa's build up to this try, it's really well worked. So the Belgian defence, one thing you'll notice about it watching this back, is again, the man, the myth, the most beautiful man in Belgium, Jean-Baptiste de Klerk. He would always, because like for all of his talents, he has no pace and he was blowing by the 20th minute. But he was good around the park at other things, that like just ruck inspecting and all of the little things where he had to just bend over and push, even though he was having a hard time in the scrum. But we'll let him off. But regardless, pace wasn't his strong suit. So Belgium worked around this quite nicely by having him essentially just follow the breakdowns.
Yeah.
So he would always
like
try and get
style of South Africa.
Always try and get into that guard position so he could just get up and let everyone else set around him. Sometimes that compromised his defensive line a little bit. It meant like Montoisi had to come off his wing every now and then and get to flankers positions and so on. But they found a system that meant that he would never get exposed in a wide channel.
If you've got a prop who can hold up the scrum and can keep it competitive, you want them on the field, right? Like, and you have to work the rest of your game around it.
And look, we saw what the scrum was like. I have no doubt it would have been worse if they subbed him off.
Yeah, they were winning a lot of their own balls,
Yeah.
right? Like, they were able to hold it long enough.
They had to keep that.
Yeah.
Like they had to know that they can't push their luck on this.
Yeah.
And fair play to him. So yeah, he was just following around the rucks here. Like all game, he was just following the rucks around.
Yeah.
So yeah, as I say, so you never get a mismatch. He never has to go, right, Jacob Umanu's opposite me, what am I going to do here? You know, he never ends up in that situation. But what Connor Tupai does quite cleverly is he passes the ball really wide here to the outside man to get the ball closer to the sticks. So they're under the posts and they're then going for the pick and goes. They have a couple of goes at it, and on one occasion, de Klerk is one man out from the guard position. He's a bodyguard here. And Papali'i, he has two options from the pick and go. Because from a pick and go, you have a one-step run-up, realistically, don't you?
Yeah.
And he could just go straight forward into the guard, Or he can do what he does do, and instead he takes his one step laterally and bounces out, which means he doesn't immediately make the yardage, but he's going into somebody who is visibly tired and who's going to go for a soak-up tackle. Now, if this was further out from the try line, he'd probably be risking losing the ball here by making that extra yard and going over and like having to present the ball back. It makes the ball press quite messy, all sorts. Instead, he only has to make 2 yards here.
Yeah.
So instead, it's really clever. He just drives nice and low to the line, gets the ball planted on the try line. Nothing else matters from there on out. He doesn't have to contort his body to present it back to his scrum half. He doesn't have to do anything else. He finishes this really, really cleverly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's the key moment of the game.
Yeah.
It's the moment that takes them ahead. It's a moment Samoa had strived for the entire match and couldn't quite find. And finally they execute it. As you felt, Belgium was starting to really tire and give away penalty after penalty after penalty. So really, really well taken for Samoa. Gets them into the World Cup. The most critical try they'll score.
Yeah.
Or have scored for a long time.
Yeah. Real shame that Belgium Tua Tagovailoa wasn't playing in this game.
Yeah, would have been perfect for him.
Yeah.
Well, he would have loved it. Maybe he would be conflicted.
So
His first name will play his surname.
Another thing I just want to quickly talk about, with Samoa qualifying for the World Cup, again, chuffed for them. We have since seen a couple of All Blacks who have expressed some interest in going over there. First of all, Sean Stevenson qualifies for them in August 2026. He would bring such an injection of pace into that backline. Yeah. I'd love to see him in this Samoan team. I think maybe they could put him on the wing and keep Umanga at fullback. That would be really exciting, and just see how much you can bring him off his wing.
Same as when centre even.
Yeah, that's also a good option. He's played lots of rugby there. Yeah. I think as I say, Rodney Iona
he'd probably just
got that 10 jersey at the moment,
but the thing is,
good problem to have, innit?
Yeah. Well, Nepal Lal's the other player potentially is interested. Apparently, there's talk of him potentially weighing it up now they qualify for a World Cup. He's 34, same age as Michael Alatoa, so they would have two very old props. But hey, it's working for Tonga, so they keep going with that. And prop is one position where you can make a World Cup at 37, right? So not too big an issue. But you mentioned the centres, and the thing is, right? I want to tell you hypothetically here. If we're doing this conversation, if we're doing this now, you know who'd be eligible for Samoa at the 27 World Cup?
I know exactly who you're thinking.
The midfield of
There's two of them.
Ma'a and Manu Tuolangi.
Ma'a, age 45, would be such good fun. He went to his first World Cup in 2003. We could potentially look at a 24-year gap between World Cups here. We could look at 12 years between his previous World Cup and this World Cup. Like, that would be heroic. There was talk of him going to 2019 with Samoa, and he decided he wanted to enjoy retirement from internationals a little bit longer, or just generally just wanted to enjoy that. He's not said anything about wanting to play for Samoa. Those were just rumours, but I would love to see it.
I'd love it.
Look, I know, again, he would be 45 by that point. But he is still playing really well in the top 14.
Well, okay.
He's still scoring tries. And he is also literally maybe the GOAT.
Yeah.
He is maybe, there is a strong argument that he's the greatest rugby player of all time. And if you saw him playing an MLR level, he was unbelievable. He didn't need to run.
No.
He would just pass the ball to whatever speck of space or crossfield kick it there. He was perfect at that level.
Yeah. And I would absolutely love it. It's the vision he has more than the power, right? And the power is still there. He's still a big boy. He's lost what pace he had.
Oh, yeah,
completely.
yeah.
He couldn't run in that try in the 2015 final anymore.
Yeah.
But he could still be drop it. He could give that pass, right? Or he could give an assist. He is still to a ridiculously high standard. Manu Tuolangi is playing really well in France now.
Yeah.
He's finally managed to stay injury-free. Though I may have just jinxed him by saying that. But it's having his best non-injury run this
people's
season
bodies holding up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, look, that'd be a really fun centre combo. You've obviously got UJ Suteni who come back in.
Yeah,
You've
Milani Nanai
had a good game at 13 as well. Really solid option.
Could probably move out to the wing as well. I mean, he used to be a winger or
fullback. So potentially, you've got just depth there, right? You've got players who can come into this team and strengthen it, which would be exciting.
I'd love to see Manu Tuolangi.
Yeah.
Because he would just suit the Samoan style of play. Because he's a proper crash ball centre. But also, towards the end of his England career, his offloading game was just was what they centred it around him, you know? So he has so much more subtlety to his game than perhaps at the start of his career.
Yeah.
So that would be brilliant, because by all accounts, it looks like his England career is finished. He knew what he was signing up for by moving abroad. And I think there was so long of Eddie Jones just relying on him and him getting injured that he wanted to do something else. And as you say, he's clearly really enjoying his time in France, and he stayed injury-free. He's been in really good form. He's suited the top 14.
Yeah.
So I really would love to see if he could get one more World Cup under his belt.
Yeah, that'd be brilliant. Likewise, I'd love Belgium to kick on from here. I really hope that the the years without the Nations League allows more teams to potentially organise some fixtures there. They potentially feel more welcome to bring Belgium over to places, but also that they get some chances to welcome to Belgium to go and play there. The likes of Fiji, the likes of Japan, the likes of these kind of next tier up, right? So they can get used to playing those teams. So potentially they can kick on and qualify for the World Cup in 2031 because that needs to be done. And continuously, like I began to make this point earlier, but like no one wrecks World Rugby more than World Rugby.
Yeah.
Like their continued, like, right. There's a very loud, people keep bringing up this like, oh, they hate the Springboks, there's a conspiracy against the Springboks, there's some like referees are against it, whatever. Whatever it is, there's some, even whether it's conscious or unconscious, people go back and forth on that. The thing is, that doesn't matter. The Springboks are still the number one team in the world and they're still going into the next World Cup as favourites, right?
Yep.
Belgium aren't going to the next World Cup and they may not make it to a World Cup because their progress has been cut off just as starting to kick on by World Rugby not giving them a chance to improve. And this has happened with team after team after team in the past. I fear for Paraguay and for Brazil as well, likewise. Namibia
frozen
and now going to be dropped down, frozen down. Like Samoa, on brand recognition, probably would have got some odd games in those other years if they had been the team that missed out and Belgium got in.
Yeah.
As it
Again,
is,
look at them putting Wales in the Nations League and brand recognition ahead of Georgia, who were better than them.
Exactly. Because ultimately, these decisions have been made purely for financial reasons. Like, because it is in the press release, like, this will unlock tens of thousands more pounds for each of the teams competing. And they continue to focus on that rather than growing the game and developing a more worldwide international sport. And it continues to piss me off because I feel like the game felt a few years ago like it was on the cusp of really being able to explode in a number of nations. And it has squandered that across the board. It has failed to invest. Some of that, like obviously COVID didn't help and set back, and like Uruguay and so on couldn't get the impact they would have had from 2019.
Kenya,
Japan to an extent, there's a bunch of those countries that really affected. Plus, like maybe not organising games for 2 years and so on. Though there's more going on there, kind of.
Of course,
there's maybe something to be done on like looking at Namibia because that's been a whole state. And again, really. I'm quite sad we're not going to have Namibia at the next World Cup.
Yeah,
like, I love Namibia. They're great. But had a delivery guy when I moved house, had the removal man was from Namibia, and I talked to him a bit about it, and he mentioned he just supports the Springboks now.
Boring.
And which is a boring take, but I guess where things have been leaning, weren't they?
I mean, don't get me wrong, it's better for your mental health. To support a team
it's
that
much
wins
easier.
everything.
So, a decent number of them seem to be quite angry about it regardless.
Yeah,
but I can imagine it's much
actually,
easier than supporting Namibia.
I'd love to support a team that wins every game.
I'd love
be great,
to
wouldn't it?
support a team that wins games.
Yeah. That'd just be really nice.
Yeah.
I think I'd just enjoy myself.
All right. So, anything else to add on Samoa?
Just chuffed for them.
Yeah.
I think that's great. I'm
Relieved
interested
for them, I think, more than anything else. Like,
Yeah.
I want Samoa to be in the World Cup.
Yeah.
I would have loved Belgium to qualify, but I want Samoa to be in the World Cup somewhere.
I'm interested to know, as much as I don't want to get too ahead of myself because the congratulation goes to this group of players who've won this. I'm interested to know, is there anybody else who've missed out, who've played for other nations who could potentially re-qualify by 2027? Because, I don't know, a little bit of bolstering, potentially even just their bench.
Want to say
nice.
Peter Umanga Jensen?
Oh, that would be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
There's a gun for you. Yeah. Roger Tuivasa-Sheck. Get him in.
Get him in. From R360.
Yeah. No, he's obviously busy in
he's busy kicking the ball against the
September
wall.
2027. Yeah. He's on like the Wii Sports practice mode of rugby union.
Hitting against a target. Any final word on Belgium?
I love them and I will really miss them if World Rugby don't allow me to watch them again.
Absolutely.
Because this game will be every nation in World Rugby that we've kind of decided we support, which granted is most of them.
Is most of them.
Yeah. There was always that one game they hinge on where you realise you've fallen in love with them. And like you'll have that moment with Chile and Uruguay and Portugal. Like we've got those moments for all of these nations, even Namibia. And this felt like the day for Belgium, even though they've had great.
Well, that game against the Netherlands earlier this year, right?
Yeah.
When they were brilliant, and that felt like the tight game to decide who got into the tournament.
But this was it, man.
This was it.
And I feel like I really hope we're not robbed of more opportunities.
It also makes me so excited for the Rugby Nations Championship, Rugby Europe Championship rather, next year. Because suddenly, how much more fun is that? Once you have a Georgia team playing this well, you have Spain who've got a point to prove, and having a solid enough autumn.
Yeah.
Excited to see how they go against Fiji.
And they're building for a World Cup now. They're in that.
Exactly. They're there. They're building towards that. Portugal, likewise, they've got a big rebuild to be doing, and they're in the middle of that. And then you've got Romania, who are also in the process of rebuilding something. I'm interested by how they're doing.
They're whipping the ball about.
Exactly. Romania now playing really exciting, sexy rugby, which I
class.
love. And then you've got this Belgium team who will never give up and will fight for everything. And then you've also, the Netherlands were great as well. You've got such a great core of teams in that second tier down. And I think we need to do more on that during the Six Nations next year because I'm really excited about that.
Yeah. Oh, Belgium, I will miss you.